This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
Good morning. This is Binghamton Now for Friday, December 13th, 2024. I'm Bob Joseph. Prepare to be informed. WNBF. And we begin our program this morning with a conversation with Mayor Jared Cram. Welcome back.
Bob, good morning. It's a chilly and brisk morning in December in downtown Binghamton.
Yeah, other than that, though, no snow to plow, no salt to spread, and I say every day in December, January, February, and March that the city or anybody else in the Northeast doesn't have to spend on plowing, including sometimes plowing overtime and spreading salt. Say that's money in the bank.
It is money in the bank. I will welcome the cold over the snow 365 days a year. And sometimes in Binghamton, 365 days are when snow is a possibility sometimes.
In theory, as they say on the weather deck, a risk. There's never, if you're on the weather deck, there's no such thing as a risk-free existence. There's always a risk of snow or rain or sometimes even an earthquake. Remember that.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's always a chance, Mayor Cram.
That's right. But it's a great time of year. Downtown has the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. Just last weekend, driving through, trying to get some Christmas shopping. Binghamton's version of a traffic jam almost in terms of people getting into Boscov's and other places, obviously restaurants. First Friday, I had a chance to stop by last weekend, and it's just a different mood. It's a different vibe. A lot of times there's people coming in from out of town to visit family, which I think is fantastic. And it's hard not to be favorable of this time of year, that's for sure.
Let's talk about holiday decorations. I don't think we spoke about this on the air when you were with us in November, but there are some new decorations that we see downtown. I like them. I actually ran into one of the guys who was involved in putting up the decorations when I was over at Rec Park last week when they were preparing the ice at the rink at Rec Park. He said, "Oh, and did you notice the new decorations?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And I said, they look really nice. Tell us about some of the new decorations that people may have noticed along Court Street.
Sure. So along Court Street downtown, there's bright snowflake decorations for the holiday season. This is in addition to, or in some cases, replacing some of the holiday wreaths that have been around downtown for many, many years. And in addition to that, we have the Christmas tree at the Washington Street pedestrian mall, which we did a tree lighting for on Small Business Saturday. Again, this is the city of Binghamton kind of working side by side with a lot of the downtown businesses, merchants, to create that holiday feel, to create the type of place that feels like the holidays, feels like Christmas. And it's just a beautification effort for downtown. I've talked about this before, I'm sure, and many mayors before me have, where the more light and the more warmth that you can have in a downtown area, specifically, these days where it seems to get dark at about 4 o'clock, it helps keep people downtown longer. It helps make that kind of inviting atmosphere downtown. So, whether it's the light coming from the restaurants that are open that are beautifully decorated for Christmas, whether it's the decorations on our light poles downtown or the Christmas tree that we have, or, some of the decorations at Rec Park and the carousel, which we have coming up this weekend and Saturdays in December. It's just some of the little things the city can do to help spread the holiday cheer.
How are things going with the new parking garage? The first level opened on November 27th. You had a little gathering of the The media professionals of Binghamton gathered at the parking
Could have been a
garage.
union meeting for all we know. You know,
Don't say that on the air. That's heads could roll.
That's right.
No, it was strictly covering the story, folks.
That's right. So yeah, we open up the parking garage, which on your program and other times I said at least the first floor would be open by the holiday shopping season, and sure enough, on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and in time for Black Friday, we did open up that first level, providing a few dozen parking spaces, and we've seen a number of people utilize it. There's been, I think, so far, well over, I think, 1,000 parkers just in that area. We've seen some really good numbers. People are getting used to that, the new system, getting the validation at Boscov's and beyond. So it's been working well. People are also utilizing, again, the on-street parking on Water Street. So it remains an active construction area. There may be times where we need to close down some spots or the roadway to facilitate further construction in the garage, which will take place over the next few months. But it's, more parking is always good downtown, and also too the traffic that Boscov's drives. If you think about what brings people to downtown Binghamton, people think, okay, the arena, you've got the baseball stadium, you've got Government Plaza, but actually the two most visited attractions in downtown Binghamton are Boscov's and the Broome County Library on Court Street in terms of, numbers of visitors.
The Jeffrey Cram.
That's
Library.
correct. Yes, the Jeffrey P. Cram Public Library at 185 Court Street. So,
Which, by the way, for people, most of our listeners know, but some might not know, named in memory of your late father.
That's correct. Yep. In the late 90s, there was kind of a crisis with the public library in downtown, the Carnegie Library, which is now the home of the SUNY Broome Culinary Arts Center. And the county, which owns and runs the library, was really in need of a modern 21st century facility. And for many decades, really nothing was happening to get it into a building, in a place where there wasn't structural issues or other building issues. So one of the big things that my dad, who's county executive from 97 to 2004, was able to accomplish is the building of a brand new central public library, which continues today to serve residents very, very well. I know there's been some recent upgrades, and actually next year we'll be celebrating its 25th anniversary of being open, if you can believe it or not.
It's hard to believe, but it makes sense, because I remember, and I know it was purely coincidental, that there was a media event a few days before the election of 2000. And I remember going through, and everybody was excited that the new library was open, at least for an initial public presentation, but there was no furniture yet. And it's like, oh, this is going to be great once they get shelves and books in here. I'm thinking, that's really weird how this happened just a few days before the election. It's funny, and let's see, you would have been approximately
about 9 years old.
9 years old when it happened. So you have no way of remembering why it was scheduled like that, but it was just the darndest coincidence.
Imagine that, an elected official running for re-election, doing a major community ribbon cutting and project celebration about a week before voters go to the polls.
Exactly.
I can't imagine why that would happen.
That's what they used to do back in the day. It seldom is done these days.
How things have changed, exactly. But
actually, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's right. But no, Boscov's, and we've talked about this a lot in your program about why it's so important to have Boscov's in downtown Binghamton, why Binghamton is one of a few cities across America that has a downtown department store. Just the volume of visitors that it brings, and what that does for other retailers downtown, what that does for our independent, locally owned restaurants downtown. It's such an economic booster. And also, too, people coming in from out of town that are staying at the DoubleTree Holiday Inn, having a full-scale department store like it was in the 1960s, where those were in downtowns all across America. So it's a huge driver, and this time of year is really, I think, when people realize and appreciate what Boscov's does for downtown Binghamton specifically.
So I think the last time you were here, you had just come from a local development corporation meeting, an LDC meeting, and I think a couple of Boscov's related things were on the agenda. Now, has everything everything been finalized with respect to the lease extension, the 10-year lease extension that obviously was announced with a great deal of excitement just about a year ago, right before Thanksgiving of 2023. Has that all been finalized?
As Stevie Wonder would say, signed, sealed, delivered. The lease, the 10-year lease, has been signed by Boscov's representatives. The parking agreement with the city has been signed, and we are locked in. And as you noted, there's been some initial work that's happened with the men's store of Boscov's, and in the coming months, and certainly over the next year or so, shoppers will see, in some cases, a lot of changes. In other cases, there will be things happening behind the scenes at that building. So the future of Boscov's is secured. Those documents have been signed, and it's a major win, I think, for Binghamton. And it was a long period of time where I think the certainty of Boscov's was in doubt. There was space available at the Oakdale Mall for a period of time. Is a downtown department store something that can even survive or exist in the 21st century? But really give a lot of credit to Jim Boscov, his entire management team, working side by side with the city to get things done and keep a very treasured part of the experience of downtown Binghamton here. I can't tell you how many doors I knocked on running for mayor a few years ago, where people would say, hey, if you keep Boscov's in Binghamton, that's something that's really important to me. And usually you hear about neighborhood issues, code, crime, that sort of thing, but Boscov's came up with average voters at the door.
It's 10:21. We're speaking with Binghamton Mayor, I was going to say Jeff Cram, because we were just talking about your father.
That.
Yeah, from the library. Jared Cram is with us. We've got more to talk about the Parlor City on this Friday morning here at News Radio WNBF. 10:24, we're talking with Mayor Jared Cram. So a couple other parking-related things. First of all, there's a parking ticket amnesty that's been underway, I believe, for about a month. What's the status of the parking ticket amnesty that you announced in November?
Yeah, so it's an availability for folks that have outstanding parking tickets that may be accumulating in your glove box or at home to come in and get those paid without the fees, without the late charges that are associated with them. And it's really something we do every 4 or 5 years to try to let people, hey, clean up your outstanding parking tickets. It's not something where you want to get a boot on your vehicle or have to continue to pay these late fees. It's a way for the city to collect some of the revenue and parking tickets to kind of close out the books for the year. But we've seen a lot of people take advantage of that. I think it's been going about as successful as it has been in prior years. Our Treasury office is facilitating that. And if anyone believes they may have a parking ticket or has questions about it, I would really encourage you to call the city treasurer's office and ask if you can look up your vehicle, look up your plate number, your name, and we can see if we have an outstanding parking ticket. It's really a great opportunity. You can avoid all of those late charges or associated fees, pay that original fine amount, and during the holiday season, it's nice to give folks a break.
So this was announced about a month ago, a little less than a month ago. Do you have a sense of about how much money has been collected over the first 4 weeks or so?
Yeah, it's something that I think probably is, I think it's around $15,000 just in the amnesty. I'll have to double check that, but I think it's that's about what's come in thus far.
Right. And this goes till the end of the year?
That's correct. We're about halfway through, and actually the number just came to me. It's $15,725 tickets that have been paid to date. And so we've got 3 weeks left to go, and we want folks to get in their payment before the end of the year.
So it seems to me, and I don't recall exactly when it happened, but when there were a bunch of deadbeats or scofflaws, a lot of people who just had a determination not to pay their parking tickets. The city at one time released a list of people to I don't know if it was designed to inform or shame, or maybe help to spur people who otherwise didn't want to pay up, spur them into action. Is there any plan to do that again at some point, if, say, after the amnesty is done and there still are people, say, with substantial amounts of parking fines that have gone unpaid?
I think the city did that about 10 years ago. I was working in the mayor's office. I can't tell you for sure. I think that I'm not sure that release necessarily generated a lot of people cleaning it up. It certainly was interesting, and I'm sure a lot of folks logged on to the city website to look up their family, friends, and neighbors.
Talk show hosts.
That's correct.
Any journalists who may have had a reticence to pay what's due.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I'm not sure, and it's very possible there's even been case law about this, but people that have maybe disputing their tickets might have been on that list too. So I don't necessarily have it in my to-do list, but it's something that I've thought about or considered. I think that with making these amnesty programs available and also increasing the ease for people to park, having these kiosks, be able to pay by phone. We just want compliance. We actually don't want to issue tickets. We don't want to have people pay additional fines. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to park in downtown Binghamton, and the investment in the parking ramp is one of those instances.
Do you have a sense of perhaps like the maximum amount that some people might owe? Are there a couple of people in particular that have managed to accumulate a pretty big stack of tickets that they didn't pay?
I will tell you the biggest driving force of people that have a lot of money in parking tickets, and you're talking about in the hundreds of dollars or even exceeding $1,000, is actually not people downtown that get caught not paying at the meter, but alternate side parking violations. That's where people get into some trouble, where they fail to move their car overnight, and it kind of happens repeatedly. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen people rack up more than $1,000 in parking tickets. No doubt about that. But I think it's harder and harder to do. I think now, just based on the ease of using the app. So if you're downtown and you forget to park, you don't have to leave dinner and go to a meter or fish for quarters. You can pay on your phone, and hopefully that leads to less of those major scofflaws. But we're a city, and so college kids that may not want to move their car or are parked downtown, we're always going to have a certain percentage of folks who, the cost of doing business is paying for parking tickets.
But ultimately, the way it works in New York State, doesn't it catch up to you when you wind up trying to renew your license or renew your vehicle registration? It can,
and that's assuming that it moves swiftly through like an appeals process. So we obviously have an administrative appeal. So if you get a parking ticket and it's something in error that you actually did pay, or maybe somebody the parking ticket writer had the wrong time, or your license plate number was similar to another one, there's a way to kind of adjudicate that and due process that they can throw away the ticket if it was in error. But if you're actually fighting the ticket and it's not able to be figured out through the administrative process, it does go into the court system on the 5th floor of City Hall, and where it goes from there, I'm not as well versed in, and that's not kind of outside of City Hall's control.
In terms of enforcement, you made a reference to the boot. I guess they used to call them Denver boots or whatever, the things that are designed to immobilize a vehicle. And for quite a while, I hadn't seen it used, and then I think 2 or 3 months ago, I saw a lucky contestant was sent a bright orange message from the city that, at this stage you better have a conversation to get your tickets taken care of. So has it been used then occasionally in recent weeks?
Yeah, I don't know about recent weeks. I would say that it kind of ebbs and flows. Again, it's not something that we really want to do. I mean, booting someone's car, someone's getting up and going to work in the morning, or they're going to an appointment. We don't really want to utilize it, but there are some cases where it gets so egregious that they got to kind of pay up. So I'd say it's been ebbing and flowing. We do now have our 2 parking enforcement folks filled, which for a long period of time they were either part-time filled or there were open positions. So now that they are filled, they're enforcing downtown. And the whole reason why we do it, right? It's not to make money. It's not to balance the city's budget. We do it to ensure availability of parking, that if people are coming into downtown Binghamton, that parking spots are available for those who want to be here for a few hours, need to go to an appointment for a half an hour, and that there's kind of constant turnover and availability. If we did not charge for parking in downtown Binghamton, what would happen is the folks who work at City Hall or work at your radio station or any other businesses would park for free on the street, and there would be no availability for people shopping or people coming to downtown to do business. And so we want to kind of keep those spots as open as possible.
From a few people who've spoken to me about parking, they've said, gee, it seems like the enforcement is a lot more aggressive than it was 5 years ago. And I think that's true. I think there's, as you mentioned, there are two, I believe, parking enforcement officers now working. And one thing that a lot of people, I think, caught on to at one point was there, I won't say never, but seldom was enforcement at night or on weekends. And now I believe if people aren't paying attention, they can't sort of park with impunity the way they used to, say in the evening or on weekends, and think they may not be eligible for a ticket.
Yeah, nothing has changed in terms of the laws that have been on the books for, I think, decades and decades, where there is, you have to pay on Saturdays. If you're downtown, it's free on Sundays, but you have to pay on Saturdays and heading into the evening hours. But to your point, I think it was more of just a staffing issue historically, where we either had one part-time person or maybe periods of time where that position was not filled. Now we have two full-time people, and so you may see that. But as I said, it's always cheaper to find either a free spot where you don't have to pay, or pay a small fee and not have to worry about it, versus getting a $40 ticket on your windshield.
Oh, and the other thing is, if you get a ticket, if you pay quickly, you can save money. So if you don't dawdle and say, oh, I got a ticket, better take care of it like in the next 2 business days, and then at least you catch a break that way.
That's correct. Yep, it halves the amount that you have to pay, and so we always encourage people get it taken care of quickly, and that's the easiest way to save a couple bucks.
Here's a problem, though, that continues. That's a persistent problem in Mr. Joseph's neighborhood. The kiosk that's closest to the WNBF studio never works. I won't say never, but it hasn't worked in months. And I keep wondering if the team of technicians from Albany or wherever they come from now can someday come and fix this kiosk, because I see so many heartbroken people when they're pushing the button and then it has the message, use another machine, and they just seem so disappointed to hear that it hasn't worked in months. And I tell them, I'm not sure if it'll ever work again. Do you know what the issue is to get the tech team in to fix that kiosk that's closest to the station?
When I leave your studio today, I'll check it out. I know that these things are pretty durable machines. They've been around for I think since 2016, if my math is correct on that. So they're solar powered. There's times where if it's been snowing or those solar panels are covered, that can cause some issues. Also, taking currency, dollars can get jammed in, change, et cetera. So I'll take a look. We have constant conversation with our kiosk team, and also have our parking meter checkers that are changing out the machines as well with the money. I'll take a look and get back to you. But the other thing too, and I made mention of this before, if you don't ever want to have to walk to
the
a
app.
kiosk.
That's what I was told. Somebody said use the app, and then that's great if you park downtown all the time. But some people don't. Some people come from out of town, and I have to explain. I said, well, it just happened last night as I was leaving here. And I said, well, I'll be talking to the mayor tomorrow. The other thing that I have suggested, but nobody wants to pursue, is if a kiosk isn't working like that if the city would put like a plastic bag or something over it that's, white or yellow, so people would know it's not functioning. Then they can go to, say, another kiosk across the street or down the street and not waste their time, especially during these cold winter days where precious seconds, you don't want somebody to freeze out there while they're looking for a working kiosk.
Yeah, I think too that we may have some intermittent issues, or you can't get a receipt, but I'll check it out. We stay in constant contact with the company.
All right, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll let you know next month. It's 10:37 at News Radio WNBF. We're talking with Mayor Jared Cram on Binghamton Now. As we continue to talk about issues affecting the city of Binghamton, homelessness. We will probably always talk about the homeless situation to some extent almost every time you're here. Homeless encampments continue to be a big challenge. There was a significant encampment that we covered, and Jim Emke from News 34 covered over along the Susquehanna River, not far from, actually it's between the the Washington Street and the State Street bridges. That was one that received coverage, but certainly over the last few weeks, the police and public works departments have been busy dealing with a bunch of other encampments too that have popped up in various parts of Binghamton. Do you have a sense about how many currently exist, even despite the actions that have been going on over the last couple of months?
I would say, and actually just this week, I spoke with someone very much involved in street outreach in one of our nonprofits that we fund that deals with individuals who are experiencing homelessness, tries to get them connected with services into emergency housing. And I think it's safe to say that at any given night, just in the city of Binghamton, you're going to have several dozen people that are not in shelters or any sort of emergency housing, and that can manifest in their squatting in a vacant property, or individuals that choose to set up a camp on the riverfront. So I think those are the type of numbers we're dealing with. I think when a encampment gets to where it's seen from a major thoroughfare, or it's in a certain neighborhood, that's when the city starts to get complaints about it. Or if it's on DOT property, which is another thing I think you've done some reporting on, where these encampments on New York State DOT property, that's when I think people start to hear more about them. But I've talked about this at length, both with Jim Emke, as you mentioned, and also a lot of other stations, is that I think that both my track record and also talking about and advocating for the need to build more housing in the community is the biggest thing that we can do to prevent people that are losing their homes or are experiencing homelessness. And we have a lot of projects in the pipeline, and those will take some time to build, but nonetheless be very impactful in the long term. In the short term, agencies are doing street outreach. The Department of Social Services coordinates, and that's a county level, the county department, coordinates entry and coordinates emergency housing for folks. There are going to be, and are currently, individuals that are refusing services, that are saying that I would rather sleep or attempt to sleep on the riverfront instead of going into any type of emergency housing. And I think more often than not, those are the individuals that we're dealing with. Binghamton police refer people all of the time and almost on a nightly basis to the Department of Social Services for emergency housing. But one of the reasons why I've been so crystal clear on my belief that we cannot allow these encampments to happen is that homelessness is a tragedy, and it should not be illegal to be homeless. But just because you are choosing to live out on the street does not then give you a license to commit other criminal acts, to put first responders in danger, or kind of flout all of the other laws of society. At these homeless encampments, Bob, we have had very serious crimes: sexual assault, arson, which I know you covered on the Bevere Street Bridge. We've had harassment of city employees, public works employees, racial slurs being lobbed at them in terms of people just trying to clean up what's there. So I think we have to have compassion. We have to do whatever we can to get people within services, but choosing to camp on a river is dangerous for the people that are living there, and it's dangerous for first responders. Just yesterday, Endicott and Vestal put out a joint press release about emergency responders that could go into the river to attempt a rescue with 2 individuals that were stuck because of rising river waters.
Yeah, that's what was going on 24 hours ago. There was concern that these 2 people and their dog, who had been staying, who knows, maybe for days, maybe for weeks in that area before the water rose, and they weren't able to get to a safe spot. Fortunately, somebody spotted their plight and contacted the authorities, and it ended up okay, but it might not have. We've had that similar situation even in Endwell. There was a big encampment along Route 17, and the DOT and the state police, I think just a week or 2 before the waters rose last winter, got dozens of people out of that area to safety, because I know with the way the river went up, I think last January, they would have been in serious trouble.
And this is why there are laws against camping on the riverfront, right? And so, the situation there yesterday, I mean, you're talking about high river conditions, a fast-moving river, a water rescue, incredibly dangerous for first responders, in really an insanely dangerous situation. So we have to be just, I think, have common sense on this, where someone living near a running body of water it's not safe for them, and it's not safe for the first responders. And so that's why we make efforts to ensure that these things are cleaned up, that it's not something that we allow to happen. They're going to pop up from time to time, but nonetheless, we can't really just kind of turn our backs and look the other way. It's not safe that these folks in camp like that.
It's 10:46 at WNBF. There is an interesting development that Charles Ackerman has talked about that he thinks could help some of the people who have been homeless or have had difficulty finding affordable housing, and he's proposed developing a complex of micro apartments, 3 dozen micro apartments on city-owned land on Charlotte Street. And I believe City Council has addressed this matter just within the last couple of weeks, allowing him the opportunity to acquire that land and possibly move forward with his proposal for 36 micro apartments. What's your position about what Mr. Ackerman has been talking about, so-called ultra-low income apartments?
Well, I signed the legislation which allows the sale of the property.
For how much?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but nonetheless, as a requirement of that, the developer has to go through planning and zoning. I think also there are some New York State building code guidelines as it relates to kind of efficiency units that you have to meet. So, it's really in their hands to determine a viable site plan and a viable kind of set of architectural drawings that kind of meets New York State code. I'm not a code official. I'm not an architect, so I can't tell you exactly what those are. So my understanding is he'll have to work through that process, but he does have the availability to close on the properties if and when he's able to get a design and everything that works.
So a design that meets the existing regulations, rules and regulations, whether it's local or state. So it's interesting that he's proposed it. This is one project, unlike most housing initiatives in the Triple Cities these days, especially for lower income people, where he's not requesting any outside funding or any state funding. He may wind up wanting tax breaks or whatever, but he hasn't sought state funding, which is one of the things that we've discussed before. That's why a lot of the major projects, including the one in the area of Front and Clinton, why that's, even though it was announced nearly 5 years ago, nothing's happened yet, although I understand probably we'll start to see a little bit of something going on in one part of that site with the planned demolition of the old car dealership at 191 Front Street. So that would at least be an initial step before construction begins on that proposed complex, which is a significant development that's planned.
That's right. And again, as it goes with affordable housing, is that if you're trying to have a facility that has rents that are affordable for families that are living paycheck to paycheck, they're not going to be able to pay enough in rent for that developer to cover the costs of construction. So the monthly expenses with taxes and specifically debt service on taking out a construction loan the rents are not sufficient to cover those costs. So that's where the state of New York or the federal government comes in and says, hey, we'll give it this subsidy to help cover those construction costs. You can make a viable project happen. The issue is, Bob, is that those subsidies are highly competitive, highly sought after. And for a city like Binghamton, we may be awarded just one or maybe zero projects annually. And even in our region may only see half a dozen. So across the entire southern tier, call it an 8-county region. So the fact is that those are highly competitive. We at City Hall have done a lot to kind of prep and get these applications ready with a lot of pre-development funding, site acquisition, which is huge. And you mentioned 191 Front Street, also partnering with the developer to apply to the state for money to demolish that former, I call it the Volkswagen dealership.
Because that's what it was. I was just looking, that place has been unused for 12 years.
Yeah. So to get that site shovel ready, which brings down the cost of development, it also shows the state of New York that Binghamton is serious about housing. We're serious about development. We have some legislation before City Council right now to further remove red tape and restrictions that bogs down the development process. Different things that a lot of cities had over the years, but just don't make sense in the 21st century, where mandating these huge parking lots or mandating that you can only use a certain percentage of your lot size. These are kind of just archaic and old-fashioned regulations. And so my administration proposed, getting rid of all those, reducing the red tape, allowing development to happen very quickly. And for the private sector, development happening quickly means it's less expensive. You don't have to pay as many attorneys and architects and everything else. So that's an important part of development, too, is just breaking down all of the barriers possible to get shovels in the ground.
In terms of one project that is moving forward quite dramatically at this point, the apartments that are being developed by Helio Health at 200 Court Street, former sheltered workshop site. A lot has been done at that site. They're moving forward.
That's an incredibly complex construction job, and it may not look it from kind of the exterior, but what you have here is a selective demolition of a part of a building, a new construction happening here. And that's a large-scale project that is underway. We're looking forward to having that open. That will provide a lot of new units and also have a component of support services for folks who may need it. People who may have experienced homelessness have people on site that can assist them. And also Helio Health, I think, has a really good track record in the community. Binghamton residents know them. Obviously, as much reported many years ago, their facility on Glenwood that opened. So they're a known quantity. They have a good track record in Syracuse and in here in the Southern Tier. So we're excited to see that get underway.
It's 10:53. We're talking with Jared Cran, the mayor of Binghamton. Well, it's that time of year where you have to start thinking about when you're going to make your official announcement that you're going to seek another term as mayor. When do you plan to officially announce that you'll be seeking re-election next November?
I won't make any news on the program today, but I think a common refrain you hear on this the station: stay tuned. Stay tuned.
I think it was on January 13th, 2021. It seemed that you made an announcement. I was looking at the tape when I spoke with you outside City Hall. Things were different then because I was wearing a mask and you were wearing a mask, so something was going on. It looks weird, but you don't have to make big breaking news. But the fact is, and you were at a Republican reception this week. I mean, the Broome County Republicans are looking forward to retaining control of City Hall, at least the mayor's office. Maybe going forward, they'll win some city council slots, but at least going forward, your intention, of course, is to stay on and continue the job you began nearly 4 years ago.
Like I said, I don't think voters or residents will have any surprises here in the next few weeks or months in terms of my intentions on what I want to be doing from January 1st, 2026, and for the 4 years after that. But there's kind of a timeline for that, and there'll be more. I do recall when I announced in 2021, it was in an empty atrium at the Doubletree Hotel, because at that time, I think Broome County had maybe either peak or near peak with COVID cases, and the concept of doing any type of gathering was totally out the window. So it was definitely something that was unique. I was able to have my fiance there at the time, now Lucy, my wife, and a couple family members. But other than that, in the media, it was kind of a small event, to say the least.
So looking back on your first 3 years as mayor, what do you think are the three biggest accomplishments?
I think that in general, being responsive to the things that I heard at the door, right? When I was knocking on doors all across the city and I talked to thousands of people, they said that we want public safety to be your top priority. We want neighborhood issues like housing and code enforcement to be, up there as well. And we really want to get a sense that there's kind of a fresh approach to some of the large-scale challenges that have faced Binghamton for decades and decades. And I think in those three areas, we've made a whole heck of a lot of progress. As it relates to public safety, and as I've talked on this program before, the last couple of years should be some of the lowest crime rates that we have on record with the FBI statistics. And after the first of the year, I'm sure I'll be talking a little bit more about that. We've upped the manpower of the police department. We focused on community policing, working side by side with residents, and we've made a lot of investments in public safety technology that allow us to solve crimes more quickly and get people behind bars. As it relates to neighborhood issues, we've instituted the first of its kind code prosecutor position that is taking the worst slumlords and most terrible folks that are dealing in the real estate market. They've taken them to court and are getting fines, are getting compliance, and are actually bringing them in sometimes on warrants to hold them accountable and bring them to justice, in addition to all of the positive things that we're doing to build new housing for families living paycheck to paycheck, whether it's Town and Country, whether it's the Helio Health Project or other pipeline projects that are in the mix. And then this last part, I say, would be more of a holistic part. The problems that Binghamton residents have driven past for decades, have thought that there's no hope, or have thought that City Hall or one mayor can't really do anything about. I'm talking about things like the railroad bridges and holding Norfolk Southern and our railroad companies accountable for the deplorable condition of our infrastructure that they own, and making them fix it at their expense. These are bridges that people have driven by for, again, decades with nothing happening. Or something like the Binghamton Plaza, where we took an out-of-town property owner to court, an individual or company that had just let that really go to pot, where we broke through the bankruptcy protection. They paid $500,000 in back taxes, and the city of Binghamton will be taking that on, demolishing that blight, and really having a fresh, new, imaginative use for that site.
How soon do you think something is going to break about the Binghamton Plaza? Because this seems to be that it's going to be a protracted legal situation as they fight the eminent domain process.
They're actually not fighting the eminent domain process. And the eminent domain, we got a favorable ruling. So now,
what does that mean for now? Does that mean there's something that could happen in the next few months with respect to the city actually gaining control of the Binghamton Plaza property?
Yes, I would say in the next 3 to 6 months, it's not unreasonable to think that we would get, quote unquote, the keys to the plaza. Right now, we're in the appraisal and valuation phase. So it involves, appraisal professionals, but also taking a look at what is needed to bring that certain, property up to code. What's happening with the parking lot. And as we've discussed on your program before, when it came time for the Binghamton Plaza to fight their property taxes, they said that the property had a $0 value. So to now try to say that the property's worth more than that, when it comes time to paying your taxes, you think the property's worth nothing. And then when it comes time to sell it as part of an eminent domain, obviously they're going to be looking for a higher number. So we'll use that to our advantage in any sort of court proceedings.
One final question. and people still want to know what, if anything, can happen in terms of a new grocery store or food market, something over on the south side since the closure of the Wise Market last March. So any hope?
I think at that site, it's probably unlikely in the long term. I know that there's been some folks that have opened up. I know you covered a new kind of convenience mart, or there's been an effort to get some of the basics. But there is a Weiss not that far away, I think a little bit over a mile away from the current store. So the actual areas of that south side that fit the official designation of a food desert are much less. The number of blocks are much less than maybe the north side had years ago. But I don't think that there's going to be a grocery store development to serve that specific area, given the kind of conditions right now.
Binghamton Mayor Jared Graham, thank you so much for being with us. You're going to come back in January to talk about a few things?
Sure.
We'll look forward to it. Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you.
Binghamton Now on this Friday morning. Coming up, we'll be taking your phone calls. Love to hear from you. I'm Bob Joseph. It's 11 o'clock at WNBF. And on this Friday, we are pleased to report the temperature will be warmer next week. This is it's a little too chilly for my personal taste, but on the other hand, mid-December, it's essentially what you would expect. But good news is the temperature should be in the 40s and even the upper 40s early next week. So at least that's something to look forward to if you're not a fan of this wintry cold weather. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. WNBF, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Vic. And I'm from Shenango Forks originally, residing in Herkimer until my girlfriend gets better.
So, Vic, what's on your mind today?
I listened to the mayor, and I thought of a solution. Parking meters don't always work. Well, I don't know what city council is doing about it, but I think they should get together and talk about selling monthly passes, not to everybody, but downtown workers, and people that have to use these meters all the time. They can sell them monthly renewable passes. They can park there anytime they want, for a reasonable fee. And they don't have to worry about the kiosk working or not, or walking in the cold, or stepping in a puddle, or over a snowbank to go to those kiosk machines. I've been to several of them downtown. Now, luckily, handicap spots, most of them still have the parking meter. But I've been to several of those kiosks throughout Binghamton, downtown Binghamton, where you put your card in, and for some reason it doesn't take, or it tells you machine's down at this time, or go to another kiosk. Well, the city council, that's not the mayor's job. That's the city council. What are they doing if they're not fixing a small problem like that?
Well, and that's the problem is, hey, if the equipment is unreliable, or the company that has been retained to do the maintenance or repair work, if they're not reliable. So I pointed out the kiosk that's closest to our WNBF radio studio hasn't worked in months. I see no sign that it's going to work ever again. I mean, maybe it will. I mean, one time a couple of years ago, I was talking with some guys who were working on it, and they said, well, we come from Albany, every so often. I haven't seen anybody doing anything or paying any attention to it. But the other thing, as I pointed out to the mayor, it's one thing for it not to work. It is true. There's another kiosk across the street, and apparently that one works just fine. But if the city has any kiosk that's not working, and whether it's not working for a day or a week or a month, why can't they put up some sort of thing? Again, I said a plastic bag, something, I don't know, a garbage bag, not a blue garbage bag because somebody would steal it, but something so people don't walk up to the kiosk thinking, oh, good, I can pay for my parking. and maybe they're running late for something. Maybe they have an interview scheduled on the radio, say for 10:10, and they just get here at 10:08, and then they find the message that says use another machine. Why not put a thing? That's what the city used to do when regular parking meters, the old-fashioned meters, didn't work. They would put something over. Sometimes it said, sorry, not in service or something. That's what gas stations do when they have pumps that are out of service. Do something so people don't go up. I tell you, over the course of a week, I usually wind up telling several people, even before they go up, don't even bother to check because it's not working. It's not working today and probably won't be working tomorrow. It's dozens of people encounter that. Now, I don't have the time or the initiative to go do spot checks around Binghamton to see how the kiosks are working. I assume most of them are working fine because I don't routinely hear any complaints about the others, but this one in particular seems to be a problem. But as I say, instead of just putting up something to make it clear that it's not working right now, they allow people to waste their time. And people, especially people who haven't used those things before, wind up sometimes wasting a couple of minutes before they realize it's not their credit card. It's nothing they're doing wrong. It's just not working.
Well, Bob, maybe it would be an incentive. If the machine's not working, you park for free. And you shouldn't have to park on one side.
But that's the thing. That was what I also told the mayor. I said I had a conversation with a parking enforcement officer, and he acknowledged he knew that it wasn't working and hadn't been working for weeks. And I said, so does that mean you're not issuing tickets on this side of the street? And he said, no, I'll issue tickets. People can use the kiosk across the street. And the reality is, say if you get a ticket and the kiosk closest to our station wasn't working, you certainly have the ability to go to City Hall or call City Hall to try have the ticket dismissed. But that's not the point. The point is it's a waste of time. I don't think people should have to waste their time for something that's unnecessary. If this was something that happens sporadically, but again, I have no idea when it went out of service. I just know it's been well over a month, probably at least 2 months. The city would know because the city checks. The city keeps records of when the kiosks are working and when they're not. So I don't know. I'm not going to do a 60 minutes investigation. I'm just saying if it's not working, put a thing on the kiosk and said, sorry, this thing is out of service.
Yeah, but now we're talking safety. So I'm putting the mayor of Binghamton on notice right now. If I come down to Binghamton and have to park on the side of the street, I'm handicapped. I got steel legs, steel hips. If I have to cross the street to pay their parking fee on the opposite side of the street where I want to go, Mayor, you better be listening to this because you're on notice and Bob records these shows. If I get hit by a car crossing that street, I will be suing the city of Binghamton for unsafe parking practices. People shouldn't have to cross the street in traffic, walk to the corner to the red light if they're parked in the halfway system on the block. That's bull. If it's not working, you don't pay. And if you get a ticket and it's not working, take a picture of it and take it to court and say, look, it's not working. I felt like I was endangering myself to cross the street. And it might sound petty, Bob, but it's the truth. There are people that can't run across the street. There are people who can't walk from the middle of the block to cross the street, to walk back down to the middle of the block, to pay for that parking. So the city of Binghamton needs to get its act together. This is a trivial thing. If they want to collect that money, it's just like taxes. Hey, you owe it, you got to pay it. Well, you know what? You own it. You got to fix it.
All right. Well, I agree. I understand things occasionally for whatever reason. Sometimes it could be a mechanical problem. Sometimes because those kiosks are connected to the internet. For the longest time, there were some issues related to internet connections, but those connectivity problems were addressed, I think, a few years ago. So who knows? But I do think that, yeah, people, it's not even so much just the exasperation. It's what I see just happening on a regular basis, because I'm out here. I'm out and about almost every day, and I see the expression of people. They're exasperated. Now, some people who've used these kiosks all the time, yeah, they're unfazed, and they say, "Oh, that's not working. I'll go across the street and look both ways and not be injured." And then some people, and maybe the smart people who do park downtown on a regular basis, use the app. And if people want to use the app, that's one way to do it. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult an issue, but maybe there's something I'm missing.
I love Boscov's, but because of the parking issues in downtown Binghamton, I don't go there. And I'm sure there's plenty of people like me who have the same feeling. You have a hard time parking or finding a spot. Even though the new ramp is open, they're hard to get in and out of for some people.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm sure, and I have no way of getting any figures, and I'm sure Boscov's would not release any figures, but they must have taken a hit on business during the time from when the old Water Street garage was closed and torn down, and then till even the at least the first level of the new facility opened up, because I know at times the available parking spaces on Water Street near the store, they were all filled up, and I'm sure there were some people who just gave up and decided, well, I can't find a close place to park, so I won't be going into the store today. But they must have been affected by the parking situation over the last couple of years.
If a city council really wants to make downtown Binghamton more attractive, don't hang flowers over the light posts. Offer free parking.
Yeah, it's an idea. I don't foresee it happening, but wouldn't hurt. Thank you. It's 11:24 at News Radio WNBF. I want lots of people to come to Binghamton. I encourage people to come to Binghamton, but I always feel badly, especially when I chat with folks from out of town and they wind up being frustrated with whether it's a parking issue or something else. I mean, for the most part, people seem pretty happy with their downtown Binghamton experiences, but sometimes they get a little exasperated by one thing or another. It's 11:25 at WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
My name is Rich from the Mohawk Valley.
Morning, Rich. How are you?
Good. I'm just listening to your parking comments.
Yes.
I'm a native South Sider. I'm born and raised in Binghamton. I been up here in the Mohawk Valley for about 3 years now, and one of the first things I noticed up here is the city of Utica and the city of Rome. They're about 15 miles away from each other. Neither city has any parking meters. Not a one. I haven't seen one yet.
Well, then how do they make money?
I have no idea.
But is parking a problem? Because one of the things, as Mayor Cram said when he was here, one of the key things about having, especially the parking time limits and the payment system and the parking enforcement downtown, it's so there is parking available for those who are visiting stores or businesses or whatever, so spaces turn over. That's not a problem in Utica?
Apparently not in Utica. Utica has, in downtown, there's a big state office building. There's
By the way, that office building, you'll note that's essentially a twin of our hideous state office building. Those two state office buildings were constructed around the same time, and they both look about as good as each other, if you know what I mean.
All right. But anyway, in the downtown area especially, there's you'll see all kinds of signs, parking for 90 minutes. And
All right. Well, that means they still have to have enforcement. They still need to have somebody going around, and I don't know how they do it, if they chalk tires or keep track of people who overstay their welcome, because if there's no enforcement, that just means some people, whether they work in an office or a store, or if they live downtown, they'll just pick out a space and stay there all day, unless they know that there's going to be some sort of consequence if they don't move out of the spot after 90 minutes.
All right. Well, I don't know how they must enforce this.
All right.
Certainly.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call. Do you listen to us often?
Almost at least 3 times a week. Very good show.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate the call. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
1128 WNBF. Looks like we're pretty big in Oneida County. We're big in Broome County, too, and Tioga County. Binghamton Now, covering upstate New York like no other station. Hi, what's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Bob. It's DJ from Binghamton. How are you today?
Great. What's up?
Well, happy Friday. Beautiful West Side day. I'm over on the West Side today with the skies are blue and the grass was green. But anyway, hey, I was just listening to the caller who said about the free parking in Utica and Rome. That's a great idea. What happened was, when I came back from Peoria back in 2001, there was a lot of parking downtown that was easy. I think you still put the coins in, the little quarters and the dimes. And then they changed it to the credit card, and then they put back in parking. They're going to back her in, right? And
do you like that? Remember when on Court Street they had the back-in diagonal parking?
It still is Court Street in front of the Wacky Weed Shop. And around there, it's still...
Yeah, but that's just for a few spaces. Most of it was taken out just for that one block.
Good.
Near the cannabis shop. That's the only spot downtown that has the back-in parking. Although I've noticed, even though the signs still say this is back-in parking only, there are some people that can't comply with that. Some people still insist on driving in straight forward from across the street. And the problem is, well, first, it's a logistical problem. It's a problem when you want to pull out, because then you're backing into traffic and you have to go across the lane that's coming at you going west. The other problem that's a bigger problem, I think, for people is, I think when I was talking with one of the enforcement people, he said that if he writes you up for parking the wrong way in one of those spaces, that I think is a $70 ticket. That's not cheap.
He works hard for the money.
Well, he does.
Hey, Bob, I just
both of them do.
I often park in front of the THC cannabis shop, and you know what? Because I'm downtown a lot.
Well,
the reason why it's difficult for people, because A, they don't know about it, they don't know what it means. When it first started, they go, how do I do this? Like you said, man, you try to back in and people are, get out of it. Who are going down toward Woolworths, Jupiter, from the courthouse, they're driving down toward Woolworths and Jupiter, for those of you who are mature enough to know what those places are. And you're trying to back into the front of the THC shop, because I walk around downtown and minister around there, and people are honking at you and giving you the bird. So we need more. I wish that, well, you can't wish, and they're not going to replace those credit cards.
No, of course they're not, but, and the problem, I'd say, with that specific block, it's just because of the way the street is laid out, approaching the roundabout, and also just because how much it's not that wide in that area between State Street and Shenango Street. So, to have, if they used the regular, I'll call it, had people parallel park as they do for the rest of Court Street downtown, that would mean very few parking spaces for the entire block.
And that's another thing that really improved downtown Binghamton was the former guy, Mayor Matt Ryan's roundabout, because that saves you a lot on gas. I said this before, I was at the light for 7 minutes. I timed it on my watch, 7 minutes. Also, where you come down Mill Street to Conklin Avenue, where the mill was, it's called Mill Street because they used to run the lumber to deposit. That's 7 minutes. You can time it on your watch. And I've been after the city to change that because it's not needed anymore to be 7 minutes.
Yeah,
But
well,
if you're right,
it's a challenge. I understand, but what New York State needs, just in general, is more roundabouts. The more roundabouts, the better, because to your point, every roundabout saves a lot of gas, but even more importantly, it saves a lot of time. I can't tell you how much time I have saved since the roundabout was put in here in downtown Binghamton, and how much time I've saved with the roundabouts up in the town of Dickinson. I mean, those are incredible time savers.
well, you don't have to tell me because I've zipped around on my 3 motorcycles since 2010. I had a 10, a 14 Honda, and a 2020 Honda, and when they made that roundabout, I zipped around it 2 or 3 times. It was so much fun.
I've seen. Trust me, I've seen people like that. Thank you, DJ. It's 11:33. They ought to have a law. They ought to have a law. That's what we need, more laws. And the biggest law they ought to have in New York State, if you abuse your privilege of driving a roundabout, if you go the roundabout more than twice, then you get charged, not fined, but a use fee of $100 for every additional time that you use the roundabout. Because I've seen some people like that. Some people like roundabouts so much that they're not happy going around just once or twice. Some people want to do it multiple times, and I'm telling you, that causes a lot of unnecessary wear and tear on the roundabouts. It's 11:34. This is Binghamton Now on WNBF. Let's go back to the busy phones on this Friday morning. Tom and Endwell, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. I'm shocked, but I know you're a very busy man. But of the breaking news from the FBI, that administration put, as we know of now, let's let it play out, 26 federal agents in the January 6th crowd, and they had other informants. They were all dressed up in MAGA. And then I remember telling you they got videos of FBI agents out there saying, "Take the Capitol, take the Capitol." And now that information was fresh off the FBI news. I mean, I think that's not good. I guess that explains all the, not pardons, but whatever they did. And I bet you there'll be a whole bunch more now. And I just want your viewers to keep an eye out for the
good news is at least the FBI had no undercover agents there, so that helps to undercut some of the conspiracy theories. So the people who made the claims that there were undercover agents, there were no undercover agents actually there at the insurrection.
Bob, they had these agents. They were dressed in MAGA hats.
They might have been informers. They weren't agents. There were informants. It says it says there were 26 confidential human sources. That's paid FBI informants. That's what they do. The cops always are willing to pay informants, but they certainly aren't going to put agents out into an insurrection.
Well,
you can't. It's just not done. If the FBI actually put agents out there for the insurrection, that would have some very serious implications. Now, as far as the use of paid informants, of course, that's a standard law enforcement technique. That's been done probably from the beginning of time.
Well, Bob, again, when they were in Congress and you had the head of the FBI, changing his stories, lying, saying he doesn't know. The government, they have videos of the agents chanting, "Take the Capitol."
Which agent? Do they have the names? They must have the names and their employee numbers or badge numbers.
No, yeah, they had them in Congress.
Okay. Well, if there were any sworn FBI agents who were actually doing that, I think they need to be terminated. I mean, fired. Got to be very careful. I mean, they ought to be fired. They ought to lose their jobs if they were actually there working to encourage the insurrection. They need to be fired, and it should go in their permanent file. They should never have another government job again, because that's unacceptable.
Well, the question that really threw him through the loop is, were any of these FBI agents arrested? Because they have all the names. They read them.
Do you
back.
think some were?
Huh?
Do you think some agents were arrested?
That's what they were asking the head of the FBI.
Well, yeah.
He was stumbling and
he that guy, well, first of all, you got to feel badly for him because he's losing his job. So, first of all, he, after, I don't know if he's going to quit right on January 20th or whatever, but obviously he saw the writing on the wall and knew he was no longer welcome at the Bureau, so he's out of work. Maybe, I'll tell you what, maybe what'll happen is Bongino will become the Secret Service director, and then Link Ray, the FBI director, will wind up taking over Bongino's slot here on the station from noon to 3.
Yeah, I mean, either
that would
way,
work out well, because otherwise, what are we going to do with that 3-hour slot? If Bongino is working for Secret Service, I don't really feel a desire to do an extra 3 hours a day.
Right. Well, all I'm saying is it's not looking good.
No, I agree. It's not looking good. No, it's looking
horrible,
as they say, less than good. I appreciate your call. Hope you have a good weekend.
You as well, Bob.
1142 WNBF. And by the way, coming up next, we need to talk about the drones, because I, for one, am getting sick and tired of being lied to about the drones. So coming up next, and if you don't like hearing about the drones, you're going to have to, tune to the quiet island for 2 minutes, because I need to have a serious conversation about the drones. That's coming up next right here. Binghamton Now with Bob Joseph, WNBF. WNBF, WNBF.com, the most important station in America. Dave from Binghamton, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Bob. I was wanted to call about two things. So one, with the parking, what a lot of the smaller locations, cities, villages, whatever, do when they have parking structures is the first hour or two is going to be free. That'll attract people to come down to go to the restaurants, go to the stores, shops, whatever. And so the first hour or two is free, and then they start charging. The reason why they can do it with the parking garages and not street parking is you have to go out of a gate anyway when you're done, so it can see how long you've been in there with a ticket or the sensors, whatever is being used. Street parking free for the first hour or two won't work per se. It could, but it's so much harder to enforce. Plus, you don't want people to be there for the first, maybe 15 minutes, first 15 minutes free. But you don't want people to park there for an hour or two for free, because that doesn't really help people to run in and out of a store if that's all they need to do. So that's my mindset in regard to the parking downtown, what the city of Binghamton really needs to do. And I've mentioned in city council before when I would speak or just talking to people, that's my idea, is to do it that way, not to do it for street parking per se for a few hours. And then the other thing that I want to talk about, kind of like with the drones with misinformation, is on a Facebook group about New York. There was someone that posted a picture of a Wegmans bakery and said Wegmans first store, blah, 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 1921. They put some date in the location. The issue is the picture that they posted is from Chanute, Kansas, which is where the Wegmans bakery was in the early 1910s, has no connection to what we know of as Wegmans today. And it's so there's like now about 2,500 people shared it saying, oh my goodness, this is great, thinking it's the Wegmans store and from New York. People keep commenting on that post, and that's how misinformation seems to continually go. Plus, with the drones, they don't share exactly all the information. Obviously, national security, they've got to tweak what they say to make sure.
Well, and that's one of the things. I heard this, I can't think of his name, filling in for the Red Eye Boys, talking about drones, and other people have said, oh, well, the federal government doesn't even know anything about this. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth. The federal government knows everything about this. It's just they're not saying everything they know. And yes, it's frustrating. But a lot of people are making it sound like this is something new for the federal government. The federal government never, ever tells everything it knows about anything, even the weather. I mean, federal government knows a few things and they release certain things, but they're not going to tell you. And somebody, and I can't remember if it was the guy filling in on Red Eye or somebody else, they're like, oh, they don't even know. It's like, yes, they do. And trust me, if this was something that was an imminent threat, this guy on Red Eye was saying, oh, they should start shooting them down. Well, if these things are as big as cars, SUVs or Cadillac Escalades or something, or Yukons or Suburbans, what's going to happen when they shoot them down and they smash into somebody's house or hit somebody you like? What happens then? So far, nobody has been injured, nobody's been killed, but I guarantee if you start shooting down drones that are as large as people claim they are, people are going to get killed.
Yeah, until they can figure out how to get in control of them from whoever's operating.
And that's the bottom line. It's one thing. Look, I'm not happy about it, but what can you do at this point until the federal government can indeed figure out a safe way to neutralize the risk? Hey, none of us over the age of 5 is oblivious to the dangers posed by drones. We see coverage of what drones are doing in other parts of the world. And fortunately, and I say almost miraculously, we haven't had to my knowledge, any major instance involving people being hurt or killed by drones, whether they're operated by just plain individuals who are bad actors or by serious bad actors from criminal organizations or outside this country. I have to say, here we are, December 2024. 10 years ago, could have told you drones are going to be a major security problem, and there hasn't been a lot of public discussion. There's been some, and some experts, of course, have been talking about this for years. Only now is it starting to come to a head.
Exactly. Well, stay safe, enjoy your weekend, and have fun.
All right. If you see one of those drones, do me a favor, because so far everybody who seems to be taking pictures of the drones has one thing in common: they don't know how to take pictures. So it's like, take a picture, a nice, crisp, in focus picture, and if you do a video, I'll be darned. Don't you, under any circumstances, do a vertical video. Because,
well, I think Bigfoot's the one taking the pictures, though.
Well, I don't see. That's why there's a credibility issue. I'm not saying there aren't drones. I'm just saying I'm starting to have some doubts about what some people are saying, including there's this one guy who was saying something about, oh yeah, there's a mothership from Iran, and it's because I have contacts in the intelligence community, people with high security clearances. Well, I have contact with people with high security clearances, and they don't know what this guy is talking about. So I don't know. I'm not saying that there couldn't be a mothership. Just I doubt it. But hey, I've been wrong before, and this could be yet another time. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks. And again, I implore you, if a drone flies over your house tonight or anytime this weekend, I implore you, get a video. Get it in focus.
I'm a strong advocate for horizontal videos.
You see what I'm saying? Not vertical. If you send me a vertical video, I don't care if it's in focus. Forget about it. The people, there ought to be a law. They ought to, in fact, cell phones now ought to be, have a setting so you can't take these vertical videos, because it's causing havoc for TV news and for people with websites. Who wants to see, and I'm looking at this right now on the Fox News website, they have some sort of video that somebody took and posted online, and it loses all credibility because they shot it in a vertical format. Can you take anyone seriously who is shooting video with drones over New Jersey and they won't shoot it in the correct way?
I'm a strong advocate for horizontal videos.
Thanks, Kim. And I say this is not just for my colleagues in TV news, it's for my colleagues, journalistic colleagues at newspapers. Nobody wants to see your vertical video. Nobody. I had this conversation with someone last week. There was a group of people. Most of the people understood exactly the point about vertical video and why it's unacceptable. And then one person at the table said, yeah, but a lot of people look at these videos on their phones. I said, I know they do. Trust me. Trust me. It looks even better. If somebody shot it in a horizontal format, then shift your phone over to the side and the picture will be even bigger and better. And just basically, it'll have a lot more credibility. Well, I don't see what difference it makes. Oh, my gosh. It makes all the difference in the world. Do you know how many people have quit the TV news business over the last decade because they finally had too much? They could no longer take having to work with vertical video that was sent in. It could be the biggest story, the biggest news story ever. The biggest story in the history of news. And if somebody captures, the only video available is in vertical format, there are going to be so many people in so many newsrooms, not just in this country, around the world, they're going to lose their minds.
I'm a strong advocate for horizontal videos.
I know, I shouldn't have to say this so often on the program, but if I don't do it, who will? It's 11:56 at WNBF. I certainly hope I made my point. And now I'm going to see something. Ooh, there were 40 drones driving over the Vestal Parkway over near the entrance to the campus. And look, I've got video for you. I don't care. What format is it in? Vertical. Don't send it to me. Send it to the Cartoon Network. Maybe they'll want it. It's 11:57 at WNBF. Hi, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, Joe of Greater Ithaca thinks that the drones were created by Elon Musk, and they have artificial intelligence, and they got loose, and they're on their own, and nobody knows what to do about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's probably why the federal government won't talk about it, because they're afraid of Elon Musk, because he has all the money. So I appreciate that. We're all out of time for today, but
okay,
hopefully we'll have Elon Musk finally make a tearful admission and an apology to all the people of New Jersey and to everyone else in America. And then he'll say, I'm going to fix Twitter after I broke it. That's our program for today. I'm Bob Joseph. Have a great weekend.